On this episode of Mike Drop Dallas, we're going to take a deep dive into the pickleball craze. We're going to discuss why courts are popping up everywhere, why an ATP star left tennis for pickleball, and why it matters that a major pickleball championship is headed to Dallas Fort Worth. Then we're going to talk Cowboys, Mavericks, Stars, Rangers playoffs, and much more. It's season 4, episode 4. So let's drop the mic and let's go. Welcome to Mike Drop Dallas, everybody, the official podcast of the Dallas Sports Commission. Kevin Sullivan here, alongside, figuratively speaking, alongside Monica Paul, the executive director of the Dallas Sports Commission, and our on-air producer, Next Level, Marcus Carr. Monica, before we get to our guests, we got two great ones today. We've also had another major mic drop moment in Dallas Fort Worth with the Texas Rangers. This is an ongoing mic drop moment with the Texas Rangers not only advancing in the wild card round against sweeping the Rays, as we talked about last week, but winning the first two in Baltimore against the 101 win Baltimore Orioles. We record this on Tuesday morning, the day of Game 3. Globe Life Field will be rocking. How excited are you about the Texas Rangers?
Well, I think it's pretty exciting. A lot of buzz going around town. Exciting to see a playoff game in Globe Life Field. And I think maybe people were a little surprising as toward the end of the season how the Rangers were playing, but boy, are they hot this postseason. So looking forward to them going all the way. I think it would be a bright shining moment here in sports world in DFW area.
Yeah, things would be crazy if they got back to the World Series. Major kudos to Chris Young and of course ownership, Ray Davis and Neil Liebman and the others for opening up the pocketbook to let CY do his thing. And maybe having John Blake on a couple episodes ago was the good luck charm for the Rangers. Who knows? But way to go, Rangers. Of course, we have the Stars starting this season home against St. Louis on Thursday night, their opening night. Lots of excitement. They had a good offseason. I'm sure we'll be talking about that with some of our friends from the Stars. They've always been great about coming on, and the Mavericks starting up. This is one of those times of year you throw the Cowboys in college football where it is just humming. A lot of excitement, especially with the Rangers extending the action. So how do you find time, Monica, to follow all these teams with your busy schedule at the Sports Commission?
Well, I make sure to watch our professional teams. I mean, it's important for us. I just listened to Jerry Jones on the Fan this morning, driving into the office to see what his perspective is as we go into this I think Monday night game this week. And then always excited to see what the Mavs and Stars are going to kick off the season and the changes that they have made over the off season as well. So
how important is it to your work at the Sports Commission that the pro teams do well? Obviously, the pro teams bring a lot of headlines and attention to Dallas Fort Worth. Does that come into play in your work at attracting, all different kinds of events, including the pickleball championship we're going to talk about in a few minutes?
Oh, I think it's always best and better if our professional teams are doing well. Number one sports business city, as we were named earlier in the year, our professional teams weigh a lot into that. Not only just from a winning standpoint, but it goes into the residents and people who call DFW and Dallas home, giving them a good product or a good atmosphere and good venues and things to do outside of that. And all of our professional teams are so generous in the community of providing additional opportunities through, whether it's with us through our Mayor's Youth Sports Ticket Program or reading and literacy programs that we have, but they do a lot of great benefit there. So it's always nice to, one, have a lot of professional teams, but when they're winning, it's extra special.
Well, we got an extra special show here for season 4, episode 4. We're going to be back in a moment to talk pickleball with Jeff Watson, the VP of Communications for the Pro Pickleball Association Tour. First, over to Rachel with a word from one of our sponsors.
Get ready, sports fans. This fall is stacked with events right here in the Big D. From food sport to football, the #1 sports business city has something for everyone. Head to dallassports.org to sign up for access to exclusive ticket announcements, discounts, and pre-sales to be part of the next big win.
And now we're pleased to welcome to Mic Drop Dallas for his first visit, Jeff Watson, the VP of Communications for the Carvana Pro Pickleball Association. That's the pro tour for pickleball. And like so many great conferences and leagues and sports entities, they're based in Dallas, downtown Dallas. Before joining the PPA, Jeff worked at advertising and marketing agencies. He's a real pro, worked in comms at the WTA, coming from tennis, and in corporate communications at Feld Entertainment, where I ran into Jeff 5 or 6 years ago. Jeff, probably it was a Monster Jam or Supercross caper. It might have been a corporate thing. I don't remember, but I remember enjoying our time working together there. Monica, Jeff is a USC grad, so he's got a big rivalry game with the Trojans traveling to South Bend to take on the wobbly Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Jeff, welcome to Mic Drop Dallas, and welcome to Dallas.
Thank you so much. So happy to be here. I actually grew up in Fort Worth, so I love being back in North Texas. I haven't lived in North Texas since high school, so after a decade away, it's great to be back in North Texas.
Well, Jeff, I'm going to wish you the best of luck on your rivalry game, because I hope it works out a little bit better for you than it did for me this past weekend in my big rivalry game. So fingers crossed for you.
Thank you so much.
Monica's a UT Longhorn, Jeff, so that's, yeah.
Yikes.
We weren't supposed to talk about that, but
Monica, give it another week. Give it another week.
Still a little fresh, but we're going to switch over, Jeff, to why we're here and talk about pickleball. But tell us, why is it called pickleball?
Oof. I mean, there are so many urban legends. The one that is definitely debunked was that the founder of pickleball, the creator of pickleball on Bainbridge Island, his dog was named Pickle, but that is a lie. So if you hear that, it's not true. So there's no real solidified answer to that question. So we just like to keep it a mystery, and let you kind of postulate.
Well, I'm a big fan of pickleball, so
great.
Let's start with the basics. Tell us about the PPA in particular, how your athletes got on tour, the schedule, how everything works. What do you think our listeners need to know about the sport and the PPA?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm sure most of your listeners know what pickleball is. Hopefully, I mean, you can't avoid it. I mean, at Cole Park, every time I drive home, there's a line waiting around the block for people to get on those courts. So it's the fastest growing sport in America for 3 consecutive years, growing 159% in that time, which is absolutely insane. I've never, in more than a decade working in sports PR, I've never experienced something quite as fast moving as pickleball. But the Pro Pickleball Association is the professional tour of pickleball. So if you think about the ATP or the WTA in tennis, we are that. We provide the ranking points. We have the best players in the world playing week in and week out to compete to be #1 in the world, to compete to win singles, doubles, and mixed doubles at each event. In 2023, we had, I think, 23 events for our pro players. And we're almost done with the season. We have, I want to say, 3 more events for the rest of the year for our pros. But at those events, we also have a massive amateur presence. So we don't just have 60 pros playing on ESPN and CBS and FS1 and Tennis Channel, but we have about 1,000 amateurs at each event competing across age divisions and across skill divisions. So whenever you go to a PPA event, it's an absolute party for 4 days, 5 days if you count the first day of amateur play. So we go to cities all across the country, and it's a blast.
So some big news, American tennis pro Jack Sock, I believe, once ranked as high as 8th in the world in singles and in doubles, made headlines earlier this year when he left the ATP Tour to head to the PPA. We've had Jack on the podcast, by the way.
Great.
How significant was that decision, and could more tennis pros be following?
Yeah, he actually played in a PPA event earlier this year as a wild card into our event in, I want to say it was in Charlotte. This was right before my time. So it was in North Carolina. But he actually won mixed doubles with Annalie Waters. So his first ever PPA event. I mean, granted, Annalie Waters is like the greatest female pickleball player in the world, but she can't carry you if you're not good. So Jack is already a phenomenal pickleball player. He's an Olympic gold medalist in tennis, Grand Slam champion, and in doubles especially. So he has the hands at the net that and at the kitchen line that really translate from tennis over into pickleball. So he is one of a few tennis players that we have coming over to the PPA side. We recently, Sam Querrey, who has been number 11 in the world and a Wimbledon semifinalist, he has made the transition and he plays on the PPA tour. We just recently announced that Jeannie Bouchard, who's former world number 5 on the women's side, Wimbledon finalist. She is, and of course I worked with her back in the day, so that was full circle. I loved that. But she'll be joining the PPA tour next year as well. So we see it's not a one-to-one where if you're a great tennis player, you're automatically going to be a great pickleball player. There is a lot of transition and nuance that you have to kind of pick up in order to make that switch. But you do have a leg up because you have that court awareness, you have the hand speed at the net. So having Jack and Sam and Jeannie, and we have Tina Pisnick, who plays at a high level on our tour, who used to play on the WTA, and Donald Young will also be playing as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if there are more tennis players coming over, but it's not just a really fast transition where they're just going to come in and start dominating. So that'll be exciting to watch their progression.
Well, I can tell you from a sports commission standpoint, we host many events a year. Over probably the past 5 to 6 years, I've been working with some local pickleball entities to try to get some events starting up, and it looks like we have a big one coming up here in November. Once it was announced earlier in the year, the buzz immediately started. The media started asking questions. We've seen pickleball courts pop up. It's just really, you can see the impact and the growth. But with this a big event coming to town, the BioFreeze USA Pickleball National Championships and Farmers Branch, as well as the PPA Tour, November 5th through the 12th at Brookhaven Country Club. Tell us about that event. What should people expect? I'm hearing there are record numbers taking shape on the amateur side. So what should our listeners expect, and how can they get out there to Brookhaven to take part?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be the biggest pickleball party ever. We have more than 3,500 amateurs that have signed up to play. And it's also interesting because the amateurs that have signed up to play have to have competed in another qualifying event. So I didn't play in a qualifying event, so I couldn't have gone on and just registered. So that's a testament to the tournament itself and how prestigious it is that people from all over the country are flying into Dallas to play. Like I said, we have 3,500 amateurs. Of those, only about 500 are from Texas. So it's going to bring a massive influx of people from all over the country to Farmers Branch and Dallas for hotel rooms to participate in all the local restaurants and activities that we have. Because it's over a week, you'll have some downtime if you're playing. So there's going to be a lot of tourism and a lot of visitors coming from outside the state to experience Farmers Branch and Dallas. So beyond that, Pickleball Boulevard, which we're shutting down the street in front of Brookhaven Country Club, and we're going to have phenomenal activations from a lot of our partners: Molson Coors, Coca-Cola, Tesla. The Oscar Mayer Wienermobile is going to be there. And just from Sunday all the way until Sunday, it's just going to be an absolute party. Opening ceremonies on the first Sunday night, November 5th. We have Big Green Egg and a celebrity chef, Jack Arnold, who's going to roast all this amazing meat. He's a pit master. So that's just really going to kick off the whole event. We have a world record attempt for the longest pickleball match, or most participants in a pickleball match, on that Sunday as well, hoping to go for 24 hours with hundreds of pickleball players. We have even from the business side, we have the Business in Pickleball Forum that's going on Tuesday. That's going to bring the CEO of Selkirk. That's going to bring Ken Solomon from the CEO of Tennis Channel invited all of these people coming to Farmers Branch in literally the kind of pinnacle of professional and amateur and pickleball in general in Dallas for the first week of November.
You had Monica with the tourism and economic impact numbers, Jeff. You had me with the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile, which has always been a dream of mine to actually, sit in the cockpit there. Mm-hmm. What an exciting, array of activations and events that you've put together there. I get that this is big, mm-hmm. and you mentioned a couple of the numbers, and I've read up. But what is it about this sport? Like, why has it caught hold so fast and captivated so many people?
I think that it's as simple as the game is so easy to pick up, and it is so social, and you can play. It's the only sport that I can play with my 90-year-old grandma and a 6-year-old nephew and still have a great time. It's super social. I think the pandemic, for how awful it was, the one good thing was that it created this buzz around a socially distant sport that you can play with your family and your pod, for lack of a better term, in your driveway. You can go to Pickleball Central, which is like a hub of all pickleball gear, and you can pick up anything that you need. You can pick up a net and set it up in the street in front of your house, in your backyard, in your driveway. You can get a couple of paddles, some balls, and unlike tennis, which I'm an avid tennis player, after you play a match, the balls are dead and you have to throw them away. Pickleballs last for a very long time until you hit them too hard and they crack. But I mean, literally, it's such a low barrier to entry to be able to play with anyone.
And are the players coming from tennis? Are they coming from the couch? Are they, where are all of these pickleball players coming from?
I would say they're coming from everywhere. On the amateur side, especially, I think there are probably a lot of players, and this is anecdotal, so I don't have any research to back this up, but I think there are a lot of players who maybe started to play tennis a long time ago, and it took a while to catch on. Tennis is a really hard sport to get good at quickly, and it's very frustrating to start playing because it'll take a long time for you to be able to have fun rallying with someone when the ball's flying all over the place. But pickleball is so contained, and if I hit the pickleball as hard as I possibly could, it would maybe go 20 yards, maybe. So I think that a lot of people can just pick it up without having a lot of sports background and enjoy it. I think that on a pro side, there are a lot of people that come from tennis, a lot of high-level college tennis players that have to make that transition over to pickleball. And I think that it gives it, having a tennis background and a racket sports background, we have a lot of squash and racquetball players, does give you an advantage just because you have that hand-eye coordination already. You have a really good court sense of where players, you can anticipate where players are going to move, so you can go in the opposite direction or something like that. But again, like I said, it's not an easy one-to-one transition. So there are a lot of pickleball players. Dylan Frazier, actually, I think he's number 4 or 5 in the world. He has no tennis background whatsoever. And he just had a lot of sports backgrounds and is super athletic and came into the sport and did really well. So you really come from all over the place in terms of backgrounds to pick up the sport.
I get the participation angle, but it sounds like between your broadcast deals and an event like the one that's coming up, the BioFreeze USA Pickleball National Championships, powered by Invited and the PPA Tour.
Got it.
That it's also a spectator sport. What can you tell us about pickleball as a spectator sport?
Yeah, I mean, as you may have seen, I think last week or the week before, we announced a really big deal with the Tennis Channel that they're going to be producing all of our events from now on. That doesn't mean that every event will be played on Tennis Channel. We still have broadcast partners with Amazon Prime and Prime Video, CBS, FS1, ESPN, but Tennis Channel is going to be a really big partner in helping us make sure that we capture the high quality play of pickleball in a way that translates to the average consumer and to people that want to watch pickleball. So We consistently see on our pro side that our events in person do sell out on Saturday and Sunday, a lot of times on Friday too, depending on the community. And we're seeing that translated into our broadcast numbers as well. So it wouldn't have been a good deal for Tennis Channel if they didn't see the uptick in viewership. And we only see it growing. So it's interesting because we are such a budding sport, well, budding in terms of the grand scheme of things, about 3 years old or 4 years old in terms of the professional side of things, how we have to be on our toes to make sure that we understand the various angles that are most appealing for people to watch pickleball on broadcast. And we continually pivot with our broadcast team to make sure that we are delivering the best product to our fans, to make sure that they keep tuning in and day out. Now with that Tennis Channel deal, we're also going to be having a dedicated PBTV, Pickleball TV network via the Tennis Channel. That will start out as a fast channel on a lot of platforms, and then continue to grow. And it'll still be free for fans to watch. A lot of our, most of our coverage is currently free for fans, regardless of if you have a subscription or not. So that'll still be the case, at least for the time being, to make sure that we can get a lot of new fans watching the sport.
You know, we talk often here on the mic drop about Dallas being named by the Sports Business Journal the #1 city to do sports business in the country. But why, not only are you having a major championship here, but your headquarters is here. Why Dallas?
Well, so there's actually a lot of reasons as to why Dallas. I mean, obviously, as you mentioned, it's the best place for sports business in the country. But our owner is Tom Dundon, who is the owner of the Carolina Hurricanes, as well as a majority investor in Top Golf, and a really, really great business leader in the area. And he's based here in Dallas. So our headquarters we share with Dundon Capital Partners, which is his firm. So it just makes sense to all be under one roof here in Dallas. The fact that Brookhaven was chosen as the next location does have a little bit to do with that, for the national championships, that is, does have a little bit to do with that, but more so, it's a central location. Like I said, we have 3,500 players coming from all over the country, and the national championships used to be held in Indian Wells, in the Palm Springs area at the Indian Wells Tennis Garden, and that's an incredible facility. I've been there probably 20 times working the tournament from the WTA side and from the event side, and there's no facility like it in the world. It's absolutely spectacular. However, that's a really big trek for people that qualified maybe from an event in Boston or New York or Maine, to have to go all the way to the West Coast. And the Palm Springs Airport, although beautiful, it does not have the most direct flights in the world. So the fact that the DFW Airport and Love Field are so close to Brookhaven, I think really allowed for a lot of players to make this a fall destination for them, and say, like players that may have qualified in years past but couldn't make it out to Palm Springs said, you know what, this is so convenient for me now. Maybe this is the year that I go. So like I said, it's the biggest amateur event in history so far. And I think a lot of it has to do with the location and the fact that it is in Dallas. Now, from an amateur side, having just moved from Chicago, you can't beat the weather. Although it's unpredictable, you can continue to play pickleball on courts across the Metroplex, probably well into November, even December, if you're a little, if you don't mind a little bit of the cold. But that's not the case with a lot of places across the country. And again, one of the appeals of pickleball is that it is such a low barrier to entry from an economic standpoint, that in northern cities, and I just use Chicago as an example, it's really hard to get indoor court time when it's super, super cold. So in Dallas, being able to perch up on a local public pickleball court or a tennis court with a couple of nets on it is a really huge plus, to be able to do for 10 months out of the year.
So Jeff, I don't think, I could have sold Dallas that well. So thank you for that. I agree with all of those points about why your headquarters should be here, as well as the national championships. But as we gear up for the BioFreeze USA Pickleball National Championships powered by Invited, and the PPA Tour. Who is your superstar? Who is your Luka Doncic of the PPA? Or do you have to stay neutral?
Well, empirically, we do have a number one male and a number one female, Ben Johns, who has 104 titles on the PPA Tour. He's 24 years old, I think. Don't quote me on. I mean, it's a podcast, so you have to quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure he's 24 years old. But he is absolutely dominant on the men's side. He just won the Triple Crown this past weekend in Las Vegas, which means you win singles, doubles, and mixed doubles in the same event. And he has by far the most titles of anyone in professional pickleball. On the women's side, we have Annalie Waters, who's 16 years old. Last year, she was Forbes 30 under 30. She is absolutely fantastic. She also won the Triple Crown this past weekend in Las Vegas, again, singles, doubles, and mixed doubles. And they play mixed doubles together. So whenever you watch Ben and Annalie play together, that is the epitome of pro pickleball. It is, if you want to learn how to play, just watch them, and they know how to do it. They're absolutely fantastic, great ambassadors for the sport, and really are two players that you can watch for hours. I mean, that's why we have such great YouTube viewership, even not just live, but highlights, and it's just entrancing how great they are at moving players at the net and how dynamic they are when they're competing.
So Jeff, I know a lot of excitement out there. I want to go. I'll be out there to take part and see what the national championships and the PPA Tour is all about. But how can our listeners, if they want to head out there, how do they get their tickets, and what should they know there?
Yeah, so it's actually, Pickleball Boulevard is free from Sunday to Wednesday. So you can come and we have to get your zip code when you get there. So make sure that Dallas is getting all the great economic impact. But other than that, you can show up and participate in all the great events that are happening on Pickleball Boulevard. On Wednesday, we have Emerald City, who's a great local band playing. Thursday, La Freak is playing, an amazing disco local cover band that I'm, again, relatively new to the area, but apparently they're a huge deal around here. And then Friday, Philip Phillips, who won American Idol, he's performing on Pickleball Boulevard. So Thursday through Sunday, because we are expecting a lot of people, there is an entrance fee. You have to buy a ticket for Pickleball Boulevard. But from Sunday to Wednesday, you can just come to Pickleball Boulevard. You do have to pay for a championship court ticket. But you can go to ppatour.com and we have tickets listed there. If you click, I think, schedule, and then it's kind of complicated, but you click on schedule and then you go to the national championships, and it goes to Tixer, and then you click on the BioFreeze National Championships, and then you can buy tickets to any of our events that week.
All starting November 5th, right? Just to be clear on what week we're talking about.
Yes, it's November 5th, Sunday to Sunday. So kicks off on November 5th with that opening ceremony that I talked about with the Big Green Egg barbecue and the Guinness World Records attempt, sponsored by Deep Eddy Vodka, all the way through Championship Sunday, which is we'll have all 5 events of the pros: men's singles, women's singles, men's doubles, women's doubles, and mixed doubles, all on that Sunday. Championship court tickets are selling out fast. We've done an insane amount of ticket sales already, which is fantastic. And so championship court tickets for Saturday and Sunday are selling out fast. VIP tickets, which include a bar and food and a little covered area right outside of championship court where you can watch grandstand and championship court, those are also selling out extremely fast. So make sure to go and get your tickets today. And we can't wait to see everyone out at the USA Pickleball National Championships.
Well, Jeff, really great to have you with us on the Mic Drop Dallas. So exciting to see the growth of pickleball. I played pickleball my first time in 2007. So
wow!
But just to see the growth has been pretty exciting, and I think you've got a great location there at Brookhaven and Farmers Branch, and really looking forward to the success of this event, and hopefully many more to come into the future. So thank you again for joining us on the Mic Drop.
Yeah, and I'll say too, if I may, one thing about Brookhaven too that I think a lot of people should get excited about is that it's not, if you've been to Brookhaven before, it's an amazing club, but Invited has invested $5 million into expanding that club for this event. So we're going to have more than 70 courts that people are going to be playing on all week. And I've been out there a couple times it's the construction's going on. It's ahead of schedule, which is never the case in any sort of construction. So that's fantastic. But it's spectacular what they're doing over there. That Brookhaven is going to be insanely cool for these national championships, and the benefits to the community and to Brookhaven members beyond that are going to keep extending because of these renovations and the impact that Invited is doing on those courts.
Well, fantastic, everyone. Get your tickets to the USA Pickleball National Championships out at Brookhaven. Jeff, thanks again, and look forward to seeing you in November.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for having me.
And now over to Rachel for a word from one of our sponsors.
Get ready, sports fans. This fall is stacked with events right here in the Big D. From food sport to football, the #1 sports business city has something for everyone. Head to dallassports.org to sign up for access to exclusive ticket announcements, discounts, and pre-sales to be part of the next big win.
Now we're happy to welcome to Mic Drop Dallas, Schuyler Dixon, Associated Press sports reporter, covers the Mavericks and Cowboys along with other goings-on in Dallas-Fort Worth. Before he joined the AP, Schuyler wrote for the Morning News and the Star-Telegram. He's from El Paso, which means he likes UTEP. Shout out to the memory of Luke Laufenberg. But he went to UT. So, Schuyler, as we welcome you to Mic Drop Dallas for your first visit, I want to allow you and Monica, a fellow Longhorn, to commiserate a bit about what happened last Saturday at the Cotton Bowl. Do you have any words of consolation or encouragement for Monica? She's struggling a little bit after what happened on Saturday.
Okay. Well, first, I have to say that I come at it more from a journalism point of view than a Texas alum point of view. So it was a fantastic game, maybe the best one I've seen or one of the best I've seen. And I care more about that than anything else. But on an encouraging note, one of my questions of the day on Saturday was, if you could only pick one of these two teams to win out from this point to the end of the season, which one would you pick? And I would pick Texas, because I think Texas is a little better. OU's schedule is a little bit easier. The other encouraging thing is that the outcome of the game changed nothing for either team. They still have everything to play for. They can still make the playoff. There's a very good chance they'll be playing again in December at the big barn where the Cowboys play. So everything's still intact. They didn't play that well. They almost won the game anyway. So I think there's plenty of good takeaway for Longhorn fans.
You feel better, Monica?
Okay, Sully, I do feel a little bit better. I was thinking some of the same things. Let's just one game at a time, the rest of the season, get to that Big 12 football championship, and then let's see where the cards lay there. But I don't know. I just wish we'd have played just a tad bit better. I could maybe even stomach a loss if we'd have played a little bit better, but it's okay. It was a great Red River rivalry out here at the State Fair. So it's a win for Dallas at the end of the day.
Schuyler, we talk a lot about how the media landscape has shifted here at Mic Drop Dallas. And I'm curious, how has the role of the Associated Press reporter changed as the media staffing is diminished? The local media has a lot of challenges. Has your role changed, your life changed based on the way things have shifted in the last several years?
I've been doing it about 10 years, so it hasn't changed for me as much as it has for people who have been with the AP for 30 years, for example, but it's massively different. I mean, 10 years ago, covering the Cowboys, I'd probably be writing a story every day. Now, the people who are looking at the metrics and those kinds of things, I'm not one of them, but they want more broad-reaching stories across the NFL, for example, that, rather than something specific on Dak Prescott, they'd rather read something more general about quarterbacks overall in the NFL, things like that. So we're sort of, the marching orders for us are to think along those lines more so than just your own team. And I don't think that's the best thing for a lot of our old-fashioned customers, for lack of a better term, the newspaper people in Texas, because they can't get enough of the Cowboys. But the transmission of stories has changed so much that those folks that aren't getting maybe what they'd hoped from the AP can probably use what the morning news writes or what the Star Telegram writes. There's so much more sharing of content, if you will, and the AP has even encouraged that through the years. That's one major piece. Another one is, we try to stay in touch with, what's clicking and what's not. If something's getting a lot of traction on ESPN's main site and we don't have it, we're going to do everything we can to get it on the wire as quickly as we can. We try to think in terms of, shorter, more nugget type approaches to stories rather than one long, 2,000 word reader, an 800-word story that's broken into 3 or 4 parts to try to, deal with the whole attention span situation. So we're not real big into really long reader type stories. We just don't do many of them, right? And so when I'm covering these beats, I'm not really thinking about that kind of story that I'm going to write. I'm thinking more about, how does this fit into what else we're trying to do? And a small example, when Terrence Steele signed his offensive lineman for the Cowboys, when he signed his contract recently, which I think it's $50 million guaranteed at least. I'd have to go look at the numbers again, but my first thought on it was, well, how many undrafted players have sort of hit the lottery, for lack of a better term? Tony Romo did it. He's at the top of the list, in fact, of all time in the NFL of undrafted players and how much money they made. So I was thinking, hey, maybe I could look around the league a little bit, and there are a couple of another guy signed not long after Terrence Steele did with the Saints, I think a defensive lineman. So I'm going to write that story here in the next couple of weeks. It's more of a, did you anticipate something like that happening when you signed? Could you even dream of it? How has it changed your life? And look at him, but then look at these other guys around the league. And that's kind of the story that they want. So we are a lot less about what you might think the approach for a morning news reporter or a Star Telegram reporter is when they show up every day to cover the Cowboys. Our outlook is quite a bit different, and it has changed quite a bit. And it's basically changing to the landscape as it is, right? Shorter attention spans, fewer print editions of papers at a lot of places. We've had a lot of smaller papers just drop us altogether because they've reduced the number of print editions that they have to the point where they don't even really have room for AP copy anymore. So yeah, it's a significant change. Now, staffing wise, we're the same in sports in Dallas as we've been for a long time. News side, it's significantly different. I used to work news side for the AP a decade ago, and we had a bunch of people in the Dallas office, and now there's almost no Dallas office. We have a little bitty space in the WFAA building downtown, and that's it.
Man, that is astonishing when you think of how much news comes out of Dallas. But I know things are different. All right, so let's shift gears a little bit and get into the teams that you cover for the AP. Let's start with the Mavericks. Of course, they've been out of the country the past week or so, first in Abu Dhabi and now in Madrid as we record this on Tuesday morning. What do you think? They brought in some veterans in the offseason, made some tweaks and some changes. What do you think the outlook is for the Mavericks this season?
It would seem the roster fits together a little better. They weren't shy about acknowledging after last season that the roster was just not a good fit, and they had to gut that roster obviously a little bit to get Kyrie. But I think that they already felt like it was somewhat flawed. I think Nico Harrison said after the season, what's the difference between the trade for Spencer Dinwiddie that led to the deep playoff run versus the trade for Kyrie that went nowhere? And his point was the team was already playing well before the Dinwiddie trade. The team never did play that well before the Kyrie trade, and then it never happened. Now, there's multiple reasons for that. I think the biggest one is the injury factor. Had they both been healthy, if they had both been healthy, the Mavericks would have made the playoffs. I don't think there's any question at all about that. And then it would have been a question of how deep of a run could they make, and I'm not sure what I think about that. But Obviously, they made a big deal about wanting to keep the draft pick, and they were rather public about it, and that made a huge difference because they basically went from potentially no picks at all to 2 first rounders, and I think they have hopes that both of those guys might be rotation guys this year as rookies, and that's a little bit unusual, and it's kind of it's a little bit of a contradiction because they're clearly in win now mode. These next 2 years are extremely important with Luka and Kyrie together in terms of trying to win and win big. But then they also are kind of hopeful that rookies will come along and be a part of that. And so that it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But short answer, I think the roster is better. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. And most importantly, over anything else, is that they're relevant. You know, Kyrie re-signing means that they're still relevant. They have 2 superstars, and that's pretty much the starting point for trying to chase championships, it seems to me, these days in the NBA.
So, Schuyler, I think at the end of last season, there was maybe some concern about Luka and Kyrie meshing and being successful together. You think no challenges or no issues with the full training camp together going into this season?
Yeah, well, I think that helps. That should make a big difference. They think it's going to make a big difference. And if you look back on last year, again, let's just say best case scenario, everybody's healthy. Even then, it's still difficult to try to make it work. And Kyrie was he was honest about that during the season. He acknowledged that there was a lot of pressure on him. This is during the season, not even looking back at last season now, which he's already done that too, you know, saying, look, there was a lot of pressure on us. We were trying to make it work. We needed to win. So yeah, clearly it helps to start from square one. I believe that as a pair, they're fine. I really think that even a Kyrie Irving, as much of a star as he is in the league, he knows what the most important thing here is, and that's Luka, right? And he gets that. I think he knows how to fold into that. And even with all the mess that was the last 2 months of last season, offensively, when those guys were together, they were fantastic, right? I mean, their offense has the chance to be great, and Jason Kidd has zero worries about the offense, which is that's kind of the core that you're getting at with Luka and Kyrie meshing is the offense. It looked really good at times last year, and I don't have any doubt that it can look great. And the question is defense. And this is just my point of view. Yes, you have to have guys like that try on the defensive end. They can't just stand around and do nothing, but they're not paying Luka and Kyrie what they're paying them for defense. That has to be the collective kind of thing. And Kidd's big on that. And he has the example to show everybody, because that's a huge reason why they did what they did 2 seasons ago. So, you know, offensively, I think they're fine. If they stay healthy, they're going to score a lot of points. And Jason Kidd even said this, we don't have to be great defensively. We just have to be decent defensively. And if they do that, that's probably a winning formula.
So I'm going to switch gears a little bit. Cowboys are reeling from our Sunday night loss against San Francisco. Is it panic time here for the Cowboys?
No, I don't think so. And Jerry was just on the radio, and they were hammering him hard about, you know, changes and this and that and the other. And his basic message was, there are things we can do differently. There are things we will do differently. Scheme, detail, execution, etc. But this is no time for major change, no time for panic. I think it kind of took everybody by surprise. That, you know, coaches, players, when you lose that badly, and there's no human nature is, are we really that far away from being good enough to go to a Super Bowl? That's what you have to ask yourself if you're those guys coming out of that game. And I think with a couple of days to think about it, they're going to feel like they're not that far away, that, you know, they're not better than the 49ers, obviously, but they're not that much worse than the 49ers. There's some sort of in between there. And, you know, they've shown it at times this year, last year, the playoff game against Tampa, Dak, that may have been Dak's best game ever. So I think that it's a setback, no question about it. But I don't think the question is, will it linger? Because that's the kind of game that can linger. And my sense is, knowing Dak and him, the hold that he has on that locker room, I don't think it'll linger much. And we're obviously going to see here pretty quickly. But one of the reasons it will linger no matter what is they can win Monday night. They can win again after the bye. They can do so handily both times. That's not going to do anything because the game after that is the Eagles on the road. So all anybody's going to be saying going into that game is those 2 wins were fine and good. 5-2 is fine and good, but what's going to happen Sunday afternoon in Philadelphia?
Yep, exactly there. So we're recording this on the morning of Game 3 between the Rangers and Orioles. Rangers are up 2-0. How far do you think the Rangers can go?
Well, I certainly didn't think they would be 4-0 on the road in the playoffs, particularly a month ago. I was pretty much on the record of, I just don't think they're going to get in because the injuries were really rough on them. And they're on top of that, the bullpen was just not good. And so I didn't think they'd get that far. And then I certainly didn't think that they would have a home game in the playoffs because I didn't think they'd get through the wild card round. So if you look at it right now, the short answer has to be, well, yeah, they're going to advance one more round because they would have to, play poorly not to at this point. And the pitching matchup today in Game 3 could be favorable. Nathan Eovaldi, it took, as you would expect, it took him a while to kind of get his feet back under him coming off the arm issue that he had. And I just didn't think there was enough time for him to kind of get back to the point where they could count on him to go into the 5th or 6th inning and not give up a lot of runs along the way. But that last start kind of showed it. And, the guy going for the Orioles today, solid pitcher, but, he's got a 4+ ERA. He's had a good year. But if you look at just the pitching matchup itself, if Eovaldi is sort of taking that next step along the road to recovery, which logic says he would, then, I think they've got a pretty good shot to close it out today. And, even if they don't, there's 2 more shots at it. So I thought the AL playoffs would be wide open because I didn't really think the Astros ever had that sort of mojo all season. I'm still not sure they have it. They're now locked in a 1-1 going back to Minnesota. So I felt like anybody in the AL could come through. And I think that's playing out a little bit because the 100-win team that had the number 1 seed has now lost twice to the Rangers at home. So I think that kind of tells you that it's it could go anywhere. And I do also think that this is where the hiring of Bruce Bochy makes a difference because he's been through so much of this and, he knows how to navigate games pitching wise and all that kind of stuff. So they have a real advantage with him in the dugout, I feel like. And if they get to the 5th, 6th inning with a lead, even as much as they've struggled with their bullpen, particularly late in the season, you have to like their chances. And I think we keep talking about how bad the bullpen was, and it was late in the season, but the bullpen's been pretty good in the postseason. There've been a couple of small hiccups, but I think I haven't looked at the numbers, but I think they've only given up 1 run, maybe 2 runs. Well, that was before the Leclerc home run the other night, that 3-run homer late. So that changed the formula a little bit. But yeah, I don't see any reason why they couldn't win the next round just because I've thought the AL playoffs were wide open. And you look to the other league and 84-win Arizona is up 2-0 on 101-win LA or however many games the Dodgers won. So from the wild card through the division series, when you still have the 2 shorter series, I've always believed anything can happen. It's a little bit less so in a 7-game series because there's obviously a better chance for the better team to kind of get through the early part of the series and then show that they're better and win the series. But man, it's with everything they've been through and all the injuries, they could end up back in the place they haven't been since 2011. And I don't think any of us thought that would happen this year, not even when they were at full strength. And I'm talking Jacob deGrom healthy and everybody else. Nobody really saw this coming. And that's another thing too. If you forget about this year, which they shouldn't, because when you're at this point, you're like, forget about next year or any other year. Let's win this thing now. That has to be everybody's mentality, all these teams that are still alive. But if they get healthy, which again, it's going to take a while because it'll be late 24 at the earliest with deGrom. But with these young guys that have emerged, if they get healthy pitching wise, the Rangers could be good for a while.
That's what we'd love to see. And again, kudos to Chris Young for putting it together. One last question, Schuyler, that I've been curious about. We talked earlier in the show about what a busy time of year this is, especially with the Rangers extending their run in deep into the playoffs or deeper than we expected. How do you manage your schedule? How do you figure out Mavericks the Stars starting up this week as well? Cowboy midweek. I mean, how do you figure out what games you're going to cover, where you're going to go on a given day to chase the many local sports stories in any given week, especially this time of year?
Right. Well, my colleague Stephen Hawkins, I kind of leave him in charge of the nuts and bolts of all that. I obviously contribute to the conversation, kind of leave it to him. I have to give Jeff Miller a shout out. He was a longtime editor at the Dallas Morning News. He's a freelance reporter. There's no way to cover everything the AP has to cover with two people. So he's a big part of it. There are others also beyond him, but I'll use the Mavericks as an example. Of the 41 home games, I'll take probably a little more than half, and Jeff Miller will take the other ones, right? And this is where I can mention El Paso because next week UTEP and New Mexico State are playing their 100th game, right? Which I was planning to go for that. And you mentioned Luke earlier. Well, I'm around Babe quite a bit, and Babe has gotten really close to that program because of Luke. So Babe was going to be my ticket hookup on that, and might still be. However, if the Rangers win one more game, the El Paso trip's off because the ALCS will be here next week, and it's a midweek game, UTEP and New Mexico State, Wednesday of next week. So I won't be able to do that. And when I was growing up, a 2-win football season at UTEP was a good season. So the only reason to even care about UTEP football was the New Mexico State game. So it was going to be kind of fun to go back and do that. But it looks like, assuming the Rangers win one of these, that's not going to happen. And that's sort of the reality of the life of an AP person is you may plan to go do something, but then the sports in your market are going to change that plan. The Cowboys, I pretty much handle myself. And like I was telling you earlier, I'm not writing all the time like we might've been 10 years ago. So it's a little easier to manage. But one other thing I'll say that kind of relates to this question that I think is an interesting point is, when the Mavericks traded for Kyrie last year, one of the feedback from one of my colleagues was, flawed team. And I thought, well, yeah, it probably is a flawed team, but you know what? It's also a relevant team. And the proof of that came when they had the weird media day this year because of the trip overseas. And normally all of the players talk on media day. Well, they started practice before media day. They had 2 days of practice. And I saw that and I'm like, you know what? Something tells me that Luka and Kyrie are going to be doing something before media day. So I had to reach out to the Mavs and they said, yeah, one of them's going to talk one day. One of them's going to talk the other day. And that was a Wednesday and a Thursday. Well, Wednesday and Thursday are the two biggest Cowboys days every week, right? So as soon as I found that out, that was the easiest decision all week was I'm going to Luka and Kyrie instead of the Cowboys. And I've never done that before. So that shows how relevant the Mavericks are with these two superstars together. And there are actually times where I'm picking the Mavs over the Cowboys. And even early in the Luka reign, when the team wasn't that good, that I would have never made that decision, right? It would have been Cowboys first and Mavericks second. So the Mavericks have made it more challenging for me, but it's good for the fans because it certainly gives them something to watch.
Love this, the inside behind the scenes notes on this, Schuyler.
Yeah.
You mentioned Jeff Miller. I have to say, not only, of course, in my Mavericks years, I dealt with Jeff quite a bit, but not only was he a great editor for many years, he's written some fantastic books. He wrote one on the AFL.
Yes.
And as a long-suffering White Sox fan, he wrote a phenomenal book on the 1967 American League pennant race which had 3 teams playing on the last weekend of the season. For the pennant in those days, that was it. There were no playoffs. So big Jeff Miller fan, the author, not just the editor and writer. You mentioned coordinating all this with the Mavericks. We should give a shout out to Scott Tomlin after 20 years or so leaving the Mavericks to go to work for Dirk Nowitzki's foundation.
Yeah.
So happy for Scott. Good luck to him. He's one of the all-time great, practitioners of communications in Dallas-Fort Worth. Of course, so happy for him to see that, and whether you can be there or not, good luck to the Miners, and have thoroughly enjoyed having you on, Schuyler. We'll have to do it again sometime. So on behalf of Monica Paul and the Dallas Sports Commission, thanks to Schuyler Dixon of the Associated Press for joining us, and Jeff Watson from the Pro Pickleball Association Tour, big championship coming up at Brookhaven Country Club the first week in November. Thanks to the Mic Drop production team from Tony Fay PR, Next Level, Marcus Carr, Merrick's, Doc Gooden, and of course our showrunner